Coming to you live from the home studio they paid way too much to. The one and only husband and wife duo who've never had a fight. Yeah, right. Your hosts for the talk of Southwest Florida, Kim and Ed Ryan.
Wait, that was the wrong one. You play the right one.
This is Beach Talk Radio.
You can do that. It's our show.
This is America and all ships at sea. This is your captain speaking, Mean Gene.
Like this.
Mean Gene. The following will be a test of the ship's whistle, the sonar alarm, the cable alarm, and the atomic attack alarm.
Hello, America, and welcome to the #1 radio station in all of Fort Myers Beach. Beach Talk Radio. Here are your hosts, Kim and Ed Ryan.
And a good evening, everybody. Welcome to Mondays with the Mayor. You're making that little face because you don't like the way I start the show, right? Is that
You
what
just started it so abruptly.
we want to thank everybody for tuning in to our first show of the week, first of three. Our second show is at Mangaritas on Friday night at 5, and our third show is Saturday at Wahoo Willie's at 11 o'clock. And Saturday's guest already lined up, Jim Adderholt, the vice mayor. And we have lots of news in the newsletter tomorrow regarding the post office and other things that Jim's been working on. And of course, we're going to review the town council meeting, which I noticed you were listening to in your headphones when you were doing some cleaning.
Yeah, I only have so much time, and it was a lengthy meeting, not as lengthy
No.
as the LPA, but it was lengthy. So I tried to skip around and at least pick up some information.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I do want to say, because after we did the show on Saturday, you went home to take a nap, but I went with two amazing ladies that we met that came to see the show, Sandy and Val, and myself and Marie, and the two of them went down to the beach bar opening, and it was packed. It was
Nice.
phenomenal. But Val and Sandy were so sweet, and they bought all of our beverages and all of our food. And I want to give a big shout out to Sandy's husband, Robert Stern, because he watches the show. He's watched the show for a long time.
Very nice.
And it was at his behest that they were so gracious. And we
And
just
you-
had a great time with
You
them.
three were sitting at the table of Wahoo Willie's, like concocting
Yeah.
a craft beer that you think we should sell.
Well, somebody should sell it. Somebody should
Yeah.
make it and sell it. But,
So we did order the tank tops, just to give you we're waiting for Dan to jump in. Last week he had some internet issues, but we did order the tank tops today. We did order the new logo shirt today. So, it takes some time for the printer to print it. And it seemed like everybody agreed that was the perfect picture of Fort Myers Beach to go with the
it's a
new
nice
logo.
one.
And so we'll keep you up to date on all that. We've got plenty of hoodies and cups for this coming weekend. We are out of hats, so we had to order more of those. So a big thank you to everybody out there supporting the show and buying the merchandise and giving us ideas on other stuff. It's really been super. I know. We need to convince somebody to help us. We have somebody in mind.
Folks in indulgence while we kind of work around.
You can get up and
Around
sell a little. I can get up and sell a little. So before Dan gets on here, I do want to remind people that if they need somebody for demolition, there's still some of that going on. And if you listen to the meeting today, you got clear indication that it's going to be going on for quite a while. If you need somebody with demolition, debris removal, interior demo, lot leveling, even utility cap off for permitting, you should call Mike Bannock. Everybody's been sending feedback on Mike and how great he is and how trustworthy he is and how he's been helping people out. Mike can help you out with the debris removal. If you need to do it, give him a call at 352-636-3719, 352-636-3719. So I'm going to see what's going on here with the mayor. Probably a little bit busy.
We had a long day.
Had a meeting, came back from Tallahassee for his meetings up there last week, which is really what I wanted to ask him about. Maybe he just forgot. What are you writing down?
Questions. I'm writing Chris's question in case it gets.
Dan, you coming on tonight?
Yeah, shit. Sorry. Time got away from me.
All right, well, log in.
Give me just a second.
All right. Did you hear him?
No.
Nobody heard him say the curse word. Now, what was so Chris, who owns Norm's Beach Parking? Hey, great job on the cleanup so far. My question is regarding non-permitted businesses opening on the island and rogue parking that's been allowed. Yeah, I think Dan brought that up. I don't know if it was last week or at one of the meetings that, sometimes even I see people that just kind of park up on the sidewalk or what used to be somebody's yard, and they are gonna start to get ticketed because you can't just randomly. Although I guess I can understand, like, some people don't really know where to park. Where can you park? And then
Well,
you just randomly park somewhere and you don't pay for it.
I
What?
mean, I wasn't driving. We parked somewhere and it seemed like a park. It was a parking lot, but nobody was there. So it is hard to know. I mean, you're looking around, who do I pay? What do I
Yeah.
do? Um,
Yeah, and a lot of the town spots look like they had the signs up, even in the parking lot next to Margaritaville
but down, down like
by the
where
beach bar.
bar is.
So
Yeah.
what'd you do? Just pull right up onto the old Sea Gypsy pad there and say, I know people, I can park here.
Dude, that's a you thing.
Now I wonder, John, why your demo won't be for another month. Why is that taking so long?
Issues.
Insurance issues or maybe state issues?
Insurance issues.
If city is full, yeah. Norm's parking lot on Estero Boulevard, right there in the heart of Estero. There, what I think it's $10 a day, Chris. Is that what you charge for people in that parking lot there? And I noticed the parking lot over by SOB is open.
Yep.
They $5 or $10.
I saw 5 at one time.
Right, and you need to use the app to park in the town spots. They use the passport app.
Get Mr. Tequila's lot either.
Yeah. Can you park in that lot? He's
I
not.
don't
I
even
haven't
know.
seen him around harassing people about the parking there.
There was somebody in that.
Oh, there was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking
Yeah,
about. Yeah.
that's an illegal parking
Yeah,
lot.
there's someone there managing that, or
Homeowners can call a towing company. Right, there you go. If you're not paying, you're probably parked illegally. Right. Most places, I think, or you don't know that you're parked in a spot that's not really a parking spot. Yeah, I would say most parking lots are full. I mean, or back up and running, or the town has their signs up. Even the temporary signs are in that Wasteen Way parking lot next to Margaritaville. They have them on the fence. So, yep, $10 to park at Mr. Tequila. Wow, he's lowballing it these days. He's usually the one charging $30 for the day. So, it's interesting. All right, what else you got going on there that you want to talk about while we wait for Dan to get his? One of the things that we are working on that I can tell you about is
it's just watching things.
you can't just pay attention to the questions. You get totally lost that we're trying to do a show. Beth Ullman from the Beach Medical Clinic, she is putting together a wish list to get the supplies that she needs to get her operation back open. And when she has that, we will definitely post it on the Facebook page and in the newsletter, because it would be great to do for her the same thing that you guys are doing for the Book Nook. And I talked to Annette today, and she was very thankful. She was very thankful about all the books. She said 2 or 3 carloads came down, and they were filled with books that she's now able to stock. We have a box. I don't think she drives, so I might just drive it down to her place this weekend if she's not able to come up to grab them. But that Amazon wish list is still going, so we'll put that in the newsletter tomorrow. She lost 10,000 books in the storm over there. And I don't know if you noticed, well, I'm not going to give away all the newsletter news tomorrow, because Dan did find his way to, I'm going to take care of it. He found his way to the internet. Dan, how are you, man?
Good. Sorry. Time got away from me. My apologies.
No worries. Well, you've been very busy especially today, but yeah, so totally understandable.
Where are you?
I'm at a client's house trying to work on some Sonos. That's why the time got away
Well,
from me.
I love their ceiling. I love the molding on that ceiling. So kudos to them.
That light's probably, whatever side it's on, is probably pretty bright. Sorry.
It's all right. So Dan, let's get right down to it. Tell us about Tallahassee. How did it go? And did you bring back a $7 million check?
No, I'm actually shooting for much more than that, but it was interesting. It's something that I was glad I got to experience, but every person that we met with was really positive, and obviously it sounded like they were wanting to help out the town of Fort Myers Beach as well as all the areas affected by the storm. So they obviously have to go through their process and their meetings before they can allocate any money. But it sounded there was not one person that basically told us to kick rocks. So our delegation is really doing a great job up there to put the word out for us and be our advocates. So, Batana and Senator Martin are really doing a great job on our behalf.
So what is the
let me just
process?
ask- no, how much are you hoping to get? You threw out
Sorry.
7 million. How much?
Well,
What would be your ask if they said we're going to write a check?
well, we're looking for anywhere in the 40 to 60 million. So,
Oh boy. Nice.
depending on it's kind of there's a lot of factors that weigh into that. Revenue sharing is probably the biggest. Revenue replacement, I guess I should say, is probably the biggest thing that we're asking for, because we don't know what the ad valorem tax is going to do. Obviously, we lost all of town hall. That could be anywhere from 16 to 30 million, depending on the size you go with. Parking, everything is, as you guys well know,
Tourism. Mhm.
tourism is, so we're not exactly sure what those numbers are yet, or exactly how much we're going to get. But being us along with Sanibel being, the ground zero of the storm, everybody keeps saying that, ask for everything, and they're going to do what they can to help us out. So we're hoping that they're true to their word. But as I said, every single person up there that we met, and we probably had 15 or 16 meetings with senators and representatives from all the committees, and it was very positive. It was, if one thing you took from Ron Book's testimony when he came to see us, it was wear your running shoes, and I could see what he means. That guy is
And
an
you
animal.
did.
Oh, I tell you, he moved around that place. He never looked up from his phone, but he knew exactly where he was going, every turn, everything, without ever looking up. And I couldn't keep up with him.
So Dan, I'm interested to know what the process is. Do you have to go to a committee? Do you have to go to several committees? And also who's got the big power up there? Is it Senator Pasadomo that has, a lot of these times it's just 2 or 3, powerful people, and everyone else comes along. So what's the process to get the money?
Yeah, I mean, well, you have to go talk to you have to go talk to the legislatures, and you have to, pitch them, I guess, if you will, for lack of a better term, and explain. But in our case, it's not really a hard pitch. I didn't want to go up there and be like everyone else, I guess. One, that's not my style, and two, I felt it was important to just tell the story of Fort Myers Beach, and what we went through that day, being there myself that day, and watching it and seeing what I saw right after, the storm passed and going out, and just kind of shared some of those things. And obviously, all of our council members are displaced from their home, and just sharing our story. And during the House committee meeting, Representative Roach shared his story, which is very similar to ours. He lost his home in the storm and is living in a camper just like us. So he can certainly resonate with our issues. And he had a very nice talk before the county. Someone from each county got to speak, and I was lucky enough that the chair asked if I would speak. So, not being on the agenda, I was able to at least speak for a few minutes and speak on behalf of Fort Myers Beach. So I think it went really well. It won't be our last trip. Hopefully next time I'm a little better than I was this time. You always leave these meetings and think you could have said something different or did something better, but I think it went pretty well.
So so if everything goes according to plan, when might you get some kind of check? When might you get some kind of money to put into the coffers down here?
Well, it's a good question. There's a lot of different ways that I'm learning that money can be allocated to the town or to people in need like that. But I guess the generic answer is, their fiscal year starts July 1st. So
okay,
that'd be the soonest. And then, the governor has to sign it into law. So all that, they can appropriate all the money that they want, but the governor still has to sign off on it. But their year doesn't start till July 1st. So we're looking at ways to get from, where we're going to need money to July 1st. How do we close that gap? Director Guthrie and his team have been more than helpful. I mean, anything we've asked for, they've given us. You call them, they pick up the phone. We've asked them for, as you saw in the meeting today, we got 4 planners that are coming in. We asked for those. They did their vetting process, and now they're coming. So anything we've asked for, they've been great as a stopgap to help us with the influx of the permits that we've obviously seen, and other issues, bathrooms, you name it. They're the trailers that we're in. Anything we've asked for, Director Guthrie and his team, and because Governor has been pretty outspoken that he makes sure that we get some help, not just us, but Sanibel and the other areas, and they've sure come through.
So you did get a $7 million check from the ad valorem taxes. So you did get a nice little bump there in revenue, right?
Well, that $7 million check actually came from FEMA. That was an emergency funding that we put in projects. Tidal Basin, who is our temporary, now our permanent, they put in for some emergency funding, and we did receive that 7.3, I think it was $7.3 or $7.4 million check based on emergency projects. The check that was talked about today was from our ad valorem. I think he said it was 1.3 or 1.4, somewhere in there.
Oh.
So that put us at about, I think, 74% of our ad valorem taxes that we expected to get in our fiscal year. So that helped. So there's.
Now, wait a second. So
Wait,
1.3 to 1.4 puts you at 74% of your ad valorem taxes?
Well, that's not the first. I think it's the third check we've received. You don't get it all at once. So the last check we received was about $210. So you just never know.
$210.
It was $210.
Not like 210,000. 210.
No, I think the first check was in the $1 million range or somewhere in there. I don't have the numbers in front of me. And then the second check we received was $210, and then the check we just received was 1.3 or 1.4.
What person at the county is looking at this check and saying, I'm going to send a Fort Myers Beach a $210 check, and that'll help them?
That first check, maybe they redid their math and said, we shorted you 210 or whatever.
Well,
so.
I would be speculating if I could tell you the exact process. There's a lot to do with it, in my understanding.
Yeah.
I'm learning every day, and you don't know if someone's house was destroyed. If they owned it outright, they may choose to not pay at all. They don't have a house.
Right.
What do we pay for? Or, usually if someone has a mortgage, it automatically comes out through the escrow account. So you're getting paid. So until we have that all worked out, what's going to get paid and what's not going to get paid, we're working off the fact that we're not going to have, and ad valorem is just one part of it. Parking is another thing. Water is another thing. There's electric is another one. So all these things that add up, that go into our budget. We're a small town. We only had roughly $21 million budget. So you lose over half of that. That could be a very potentially a very big problem.
Let's talk about the parking real quick because you
Okay.
brought it up. So a lot of the town spots are back up. Old San Carlos, next to Margaritaville, you got the signs temporarily on the fence there. But somebody did ask, what if people just are randomly parking where they're not supposed to park? And I know you addressed this maybe at the last show or at one of the meetings. I can't remember. So you are going there. The town will start to take action on people if they're just randomly parking where they're not supposed to park, right? You are going to get ticketed.
Yeah, I mean, it's you're not supposed to park in places, you're going to get a ticket right away. Is a big issue, not just for us, but for the fire department and first responders, Lee County Sheriff's Office. If they need to get somewhere and they can't because you're parked in a spot you're not supposed to be, that's not good for anyone. So if you're parked in a spot you're not supposed to, you're going to get a ticket, and it's unfortunate, but we have to maintain some sort of order.
Yeah, it's not really unfortunate. I mean, people have been warned. I mean, I think there was a long enough time where people could just park anywhere. It's not like you flipped a switch and and just started sneaking up on people.
When you say park anywhere, though, like
on a sidewalk. Like when I saw them coming back, there was like 8 cars parked on a sidewalk so that they can walk to the beach. It's like
that's okay.
No, you're not allowed.
The biggest spot was, as you first come over the bridge, Crescent Beach Park. They were parking all up on the sand, and there was a motorhome that was stuck in the sand, and now that's fenced off. They can't get in there. But the further south you drive, you'll still see them. They'll pull up into empty lots and just pull right out onto the beach, and we can't have that.
Yeah,
Too many
so
people have worked too hard.
People
Right.
can't just pull into an empty lot, or like if there's a business that's been damaged and clearly isn't open, but there's parking there. People should not park there. They'll get ticketed if they park there. How does that, what does that work?
Take it on a private business.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I was reading Marcia's comment. Now
Oh,
I want to respond to her comment there. But
Okay.
I'm sorry, Kim. Say
You're
what
not,
you.
the town's not going to write tickets if somebody parks at a private business.
that's not clearly not open because it's been damaged. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's going to be probably on the business owner.
Right.
I mean, it's
Okay.
for us. It's the right of way. It's the public
Okay.
safety issue.
All right. I'll pull Marcia's question up there if you want to talk about it. $30 million for town hall. How about
So-
less on an office building and more towards community buildings like the school? Well, that's different. Bay Oaks, playground, ball fields, parks. Go ahead, Dan.
So again, I'll reiterate the $30 million number that was thrown out there was based on the square footage that was put together in a very, very quick. They gave staff a piece of paper that basically said, if you could design what you want to design, how much space do you need based on what you had before and the growth? The building we had before was not significant or was not sufficient enough to do the day-to-day stuff that they needed to do space-wise. So they put in what was, and this is the numbers that came out. And based on the size and the needs that the staff had put in this very quick, I mean, when I say quick, it was an Excel spreadsheet that they had used from another county that they said, this is what we used. Just plug numbers in here. We'll put together a price. So at least you have something, because you have to have numbers to go to FEMA. So I don't want everybody to assume that the town is thinking about building a $32 million. It was a starting point. It was a starting point, and we completely understand that you look through that. If you look through the actual pages that were in the packet, you'll see that there was things in there. There was basically a conference room for every department. We obviously don't need conference room for every department. So it was much like when we went through, when I was on the BORCAB committee, when we went through.
Yep.
Think big.
Yep.
Just think big, right? So it's the same scenario. You have to put numbers together to be able to push to go towards FEMA, and FEMA will pay for what you had, up to what you had, plus mitigation for hardening. We don't know what that is yet. We still have to go through that process, but
in terms of what you had before, is that square footage of what you had before and the hardening? What does that mean? What you had before? I mean,
so depending on who you talk to, 16,000 square foot, give or take, is what we had before at the old bank building.
okay.
So FEMA will replace, obviously you have to go through we're still working with the Florida League of Cities, who's our insurance carrier, to get the whatever money we can get back from that. Then there's that, what Chris Holly calls the delta between what you get from your insurance company and what it would take to replace it. That's where FEMA kind of comes in. And the hardening means, do you want to, much like it was in the Bay Oaks building that was designed, make it into a bomb shelter, I guess, if you will, a fully concrete 200-mile-an-hour rated building. That's where that mitigation comes in. So FEMA will pay money to make it more resilient, more to make it stronger, to make it so they don't ever have to give you any money again, essentially. So that's along the same lines that we talk about when we're talking about houses and building back and elevating them. And the more you can harden things or mitigate things, the more money that you can potentially get from FEMA. So that all goes into play into, let's say, worst case scenario, that was that $32 million number. That all that would play into that. But that 32 million, again, I just want to reiterate, was just a number based on the square footage that was put together by a quick little worksheet done by the staff to put their wish list together. They inserted what today's costs are for price per square foot to build a building like that. And they gave it, and they did this all for free. So it was a very quick thing to kind of put something together so that Tidal Basin can get to work on submitting money for on our behalf from FEMA.
Okay. So just real quick, Dan, what's the latest with League of Cities and getting the insurance thing all settled so that building can come down, the town hall building come down? It's a gigantic eyesore.
Yeah, they've told us by the end of the month they should have concluded their investigation, I guess, if you will. Depending on what they offer the town, then we'll have to decide if depending what the max that we're insured for. Obviously, if they pay out the max that we were insured for, then we can move forward. If not, then we have to deal with public adjusters, which I'm sure people that live on the island now are starting to become very familiar with. That go to bat for them on behalf of them to
Yep.
fight the insurance companies get more. So the town is no different than any other homeowner on the island. We have to go through the same process. And, trust me, we were in Tallahassee. We ran into someone up there and we, bent their ear a little bit and said, we got a pretty big eyesore there. We need to start moving. We're looking at potentially 3 years to get into a new building. And
So that thing could still be sitting. That thing could still be sitting there for a few more months at least, if you have to get a public adjuster. Which it's ironic that all these other buildings are coming down, and the town hall is still sitting there with dangling wires out of it. So real quick, again, remind people what the deadline is that you guys have set for that debris pile at Bay Oaks to be removed.
Well, we had initially talked to Crowder Golf about March, right around March sometime. And that was based on all the timelines that we had for getting the renovations done to Bay Oaks to be able to open back up the Bay Oaks Community Center. Obviously, we haven't been able to award that bid, as you saw in the meeting today.
Yep.
We made the decision to throw the bids out and go back and rebid it so that we can do that. So every time that delays, we'll probably delay that clearing of but they have assured us when we tell them it has to be out by a specific date, it will be out by that date.
What's amazing about the Bay Oaks refurbishment or the work that you guys wanted to get done, I read the protest from one of the vendors that tried to get the job, and it looked like one of the reasons this company's protesting was because there was a document that didn't have a signature on it. So he files a protest that this other company that you awarded the bid to didn't follow the procedures. Like, now you got to go through this whole thing again just to get one document signed. I mean, talk about being kicked when you're down. I mean, it's asinine, totally asinine.
Well, I certainly can't speak for the company that decided to file the grievance, I guess, if you will. But they chose to take that path. I don't even know the name of the company that did it. But I guess to me, if as a business owner, if I wouldn't do that, but they did. We're at where we're at now, so we'll send it out for rebid. Hopefully, everybody, as we said in the meeting, will cross their I's or dot their I's and cross their T's, and staff will catch it. And if there is something that's not supposed to be there or is not finished completely, and we don't have to go back through this again. I just felt that going through the process of doing a hearing and then they could potentially appeal it again. I mean, anybody who's been involved in any kind of legal thing knows that appeal is not a good word.
Right. So go ahead.
So,
I don't want to start with.
I know.
I don't want to get. I want to ask one more question before we get to tidal basin. And what? Well, I'll let you ask it if you feel like you have to ask the tidal basin question. I mean, come on.
I'd like to.
You're on your phone. You're playing the Words with Friends. We're trying to do a show here. And the one question I want to ask you, Dan, that it confuses me a little bit, among many things, of course, is that when I watched the LPA marathon meeting the other day, there's a guy there who's made a presentation to the town before about overall planning, and I can't remember his name, but I couldn't hear him too well because of the jackhammering that day. But he made a presentation about different parts of the island, and this part is going to be this way, and this part is going to be that way, and it was just like he had the whole thing laid out. Do you know who I'm talking about, and what is that whole thing about?
You keep asking that question.
Honestly, I don't. I haven't been able to make it through the entire meeting yet. So I'm not exactly sure who you're talking about, but I'm assuming you're kind of alluding to like an urban planner kind of thing. Like this is
the second time he's been in front of the council, though. It's like he's working with the community development, like he's working with Jason Green, and they're putting together.
Eddie.
Yeah.
Eddie from court. Yeah. So he was hired long before the storm,
right,
to come in and kind of look at how we can
Times Square and stuff.
Well, Times Square is one, and then there's other what they call nodes throughout the island. I think you heard Steve Johnson refer to those nodes in his public comment today. Essentially, it was areas where you could do some mixed use throughout the island is one of the things that they're looking at. How you can change some zoning some places to be able to add some workforce housing or entice developers to bring in workforce housing, as well as several other things through our land development code that he's been looking at cleaning up, if you will, because it's been a long time since that's been looked at. So that's what he was hired to do. His consultation is that. So The good thing is that we had him in place and we had started down the road a little bit before the storm hit. So we're not behind the 8 ball starting from scratch. He's obviously, you know, we've had conversations with him and meetings with him outside of the, you know, myself and the town manager have had meetings with him and staff to kind of find out where he's at. He understands the magnitude of what we have to go through now to make changes. It may expand that, it may contract. We don't know yet, but now I know exactly who you're talking about.
But that's got to be something that the entire community has input on, right? I mean, I think I even heard.
Oh, certainly. Yeah, it's not going to be this is what we think, and then it go. The town residents will have plenty of time to. It's not whatever he says is going to happen. There'll be plenty of input. It's just he's providing suggestions, and then it'll get vetted out the normal process through the LPA, and then eventually the council, just like anything else.
Hit it, dear. You're
No. Well, now we're talking about that. So one of the questions was about, and if you're going to be reduced, and how are they going to prevent the town from being overbuilt, which is similar to this other question, which is, does the council have any plans to change current limits in the building floors and stories, how high people can go?
Well, base flood elevation is going to be set by the flood maps. The town doesn't get to dictate what that is. So if you're building back, you're going to have to build back to whatever your base flood elevation is. And I think that it can go +3. I'm not Jason Green, so I've been trying to pick Jason's Green a little bit on it. But whatever the base flood elevation is, there's incentives to go even higher than that in our current code. So anyone that I've met with, I've told them the same thing. If you can build what you want within the current codes that we have today, go for it. If you need to wait to see if things change, then feel free to wait to see if things change. I don't know. I don't know what the will is of my fellow counselors. I don't know what the will is of the LPA yet to change setbacks or to change height densities. I mean, I've heard so many different things people talking about, but until there's actually something put down within an ordinance or a resolution that you can actually discuss, that the public can input on it. And the public has been great so far about giving their suggestions. I get emails, I'm sure the LPA does, about obviously one of the big things are these smaller lots, like you heard in public comment today, the 50-foot lots. How, you know, with our current setbacks, those are still 7.5 feet. If you're a 50-foot wide lot, you still have 7.5 foot. However, we also have things. So one in our code, one thing sets off another thing. And I think what they were talking about today, I think it was Bill that brought it up towards the end of the meeting, was the 12 houses that gentleman referred to in the public comment today. There's also so much density per acre that when those houses were built, obviously that wasn't an issue. So there's so many complex things that have to be looked at. It's not just as simple, my lot's this big, I should get to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where Eddie, back to what you were saying, Ed, that's where Eddie's coming in. That's where he's looking at things and seeing what makes sense. How do you know, he doesn't have all the answers. He just has suggestions, which that'll come forward. So the public can input and say that, you know, I like it, I don't like it. We should change this. We should do that. But we completely understand that people are waiting to build back based on what those changes may or may not be. But it has to go through the process. We can't just arbitrarily say we want to do this or we want to do that. You have to go through.
A couple of people.
So,
Go ahead.
I just want to ask the gentleman that you're referring to, is that the only planner that you're going to have to do this enormous build back project, or is that going to be something that you seek outside consultants on? Or
no, not necessarily. I think you heard Chris Holly bring it up at the last meeting that you know, do we need to bring in an urban planner? I've been talking with Commissioner Sandelli about ULI is a company that's out there that does great work. So do we need to bring people in like that? But that costs money. And if the state is willing to help us out with that, I think that's a good avenue to go down. They do the charrettes, they do all the stuff that they can do to meet with the community as well as its leaders and formulate a plan. Bay County did that. They brought in an urban planner and sat down and met with the community and they have an 80% approval rating on what they approved and what they're moving forward with. So, I mean, that's a playbook that we could certainly work off of. I think it makes a heck of a lot of sense, but that costs money. So you have to figure out if the state is willing to help us with that. so that we can get these people in, the professionals that can listen to the community, listening to its leaders, formulate a plan, talk about it. Doesn't work, you take out what doesn't work, you go back to the drawing board, you go through the process. But that's going to take time.
You mentioned Ray Sandelli and the county, the parking lot at Lynn Hall Park, and I know this is a much bigger thing with the pier and the bathrooms, but the parking lot at Lynn Hall Park has still got the sand in it from when the storm hit. They haven't touched anything in Lynn Hall Park. It's really it's outrageous that they can't clean that park up so that you guys can use it for parking. I mean, can they at least do that for the town?
Well, we did reach out. Chris Holly reached out to the county manager and asked that specific question. We actually offered to clean the parking lot up. We didn't ask to do it for money. We didn't ask to do it just to help alleviate what we talked about earlier, some of the illegal parking. They have to go through the same process that we do on our projects. They have to go through they have to make sure that their insurance people go through and look at the buildings that are destroyed, look at what's destroyed, so that they can apply through the FEMA process. So as much as they, I think, would like to help us out and do that, they have to go through the same process like we do for town hall to make sure that they're getting reimbursed. Because at the end of the day, if you're doing things and you're not going to get reimbursed, it's not good for any taxpayer in the county.
I mean, I'm sorry, but to me, that sounds so ridiculous. It's a parking lot. It's not a building. It's not a pier. It's a parking lot with over 100 empty spots that has a fence in front of it. It's like a blower. Get a blower and a shovel out there. What is it? It's so silly sometimes.
You know, you always so like to reduce it to so simple, and it's never that simple.
Clearly, it's not.
It's you know, I've learned probably more in the last 2 months about the process, having to go through and get reimbursed and stuff like that through FEMA. I mean, they're working with not just our tax dollars, but the entire country's tax dollars. So they have to be diligent that they're dotting their I's and crossing their T's. So in the parking lot is not separate from the park itself. It's, in this case, it's one entire entity. So you have to look at it as a whole. You can't separate the parking lot from the buildings. They were all hit.
I hear what you're saying. And I'm not
excuses. We did reach out. We did ask to open it up. And their response was probably what our response would have been, is that they have to go through the process to make sure that they're going to get reimbursed before they can
reimburse. I know I'm being an idiot, but
go on to your other harping thing that you get on him every week.
I'm not going to ask about this.
So let me just segue to about getting money and about getting reimbursement. You had some presentations today from some different companies. I don't know what the correct nomenclature is, but disaster recovery fund people.
Yep.
And so you had the presentations, and you guys and everybody voted, and the things were tallied. And Tidal Basin, who is the one that you have now, correct, is going to be continued moving forward. So for people that didn't listen or that don't know, what is Tidal Basin's? What are their responsibilities? What are they going to do for the town that the town needs assistance with?
So these disaster recovery companies, they essentially come in and they're your conduit between FEMA. They are the ones that file the paperwork. They are the ones that come in and meet with staff and say, and this is just a basic overview. I mean, they do so much more, but the basic overview is that they come in, they speak with staff, figure out what was destroyed, what needs to be rebuilt, what's emergency. And there's all these categories, A through G, and depending on the category, depends on how fast you can get funds. If you're gonna, for instance, like Bay Oaks, that was in, I can't remember each category. There's so many different categories I can't remember, but that went into a specific category that could be funded very quickly to be used for something municipal, like what we need for a town hall. So that money could be available very quickly, but you have to use it specifically for that use or you lose it. Then you have other categories where things that maybe weren't damaged, which everything we had pretty much had some sort of damage, but there's other categories, and I can never remember if it's 404 or 406. They give me a hard time because I can never seem to remember for some reason what falls in each one. But there's another one that another mitigation thing where the things maybe weren't destroyed, but you can harden them, and there's another pocket of money there. So as you saw in the presentations today, there's a lot of money out there through grants and appropriations and FEMA, and there's a lot of money, and they are the specialists that come in, know how to navigate that system, but they're also there to make sure that when you get audited, and FEMA is a 100% audit, they will come back, and you've probably heard the phrase clawback. So if you don't do things according to the rules, according to the way FEMA wants you to do them, similar to the IRS, if you don't follow the rules, they come back to you and say, by the way, you owe us this much because you didn't follow the rules. They give you the money up front, but then they come back and say, you didn't provide this receipt, you didn't do this. So it's very important that the town has a company like this to be able to do all of that work for us, because our staff simply couldn't do it. That's why these companies exist. So that's in a broad spectrum, that they are a conduit to getting money from FEMA and making sure we don't have to give money back to FEMA.
And they'll be reimbursed by FEMA for the job they do, right? That's not coming out of the town.
I think they said 70 or 75% today. And one of the asks that we have with the legislature is that mitigation match, which is usually 25% or somewhere in there, depending on how it works out. So we're asking everybody, to steal a phrase from Kevin Ruane, who was up there with me and sat beside me and made the same pitches that I was making. We're professional beggars, and that's something that he said to me a while back. And and that's essentially what we are right now. We're in a state, both as the town and the county, where we need help. It's we're all losing ad valorem, we're all losing tourist dollars, we're all losing all the things that we've been accustomed to. And the state is going to help out. We just have to know. We don't know how much yet.
I think you should be called professional civil advocates.
Yeah, I don't know if I like the word beggars either, because I'm not. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm not a person that usually will ask for help. I'll usually try to figure it out on my own. And but this isn't about me. This is about our community, and our community needs help. So if I've got to be the one that goes and asks, I will certainly do that.
I think I just want to mention one thing. I thought one of the things, and I don't know which presentation group it was that brought up, but gave an example about, when you're rebuilding and you get something super fantastic, but you have to, you being the town or the municipality, has to be able to afford maintaining that. And so that sometimes getting something, I think they were talking about the New Orleans with the special water movers, that they got them and FEMA paid for them, but then they couldn't afford to maintain them because it was so costly. And I thought that was good, that folks are looking at things like that. Like, yeah, this would be great, but can you afford to maintain it once it's built? So
yeah, they were talking about, I think it was the lift station there for New Orleans. And I thought that was a very good example. You just because you ask for something, if you do get it, be careful what you wish for. You have to make sure that, as he said, you got to be able to maintain it. One, have the staff, and two, have the income to be able to maintain the services that they're going to put in. So that's another example of what those companies do, is they try to advise you to, and they're very good about it. I've had probably more suggestions than they've probably wanted to hear, is how we can try to get some money or how we can mitigate things. And they're very good about saying, yeah, no, we can't do that. That wouldn't fall under this. So they're very good. They're very knowledgeable.
One of the reasons I like the fact that you guys picked Tidal Basin today was because, I just learned it today at the meeting, was that they have people that are working in that company that used to work for FEMA. And so they seem like they would know the process and the rigmarole of the politics of trying to get money and not getting clawed back on when you have a gigantic company like that has done this before with FEMA and has FEMA experience.
Yeah, one of the first meetings I had with Director Guthrie, he was very, very clear that you have this procurement out there for a disaster recovery, but this current council didn't put out that procurement. We didn't put out. So to award something to somebody that this council may or may not agree with, that you're going to be married to for 5 to 10 years, it made sense to go back out and reprocure it. And that's what we did.
I see.
And I thought it was a healthy discussion, because you want to make sure, and it may be the same one, but you want to make sure that the person that's working for you get to ask them the questions. You get to look them in the eye. You get to, what are you going to do for us? How many, if you've got every city in Lee County that you're representing, how much time are you really going to put towards the town of Fort Myers Beach? So I thought that was very good advice. We followed that advice as a town, and we ended up on Tidal Basin, who was here. Everybody got to ask their questions. I thought all three did a very good job of presenting today. And now we get to move forward. That's one less thing we have to worry about.
So remind me, who's the project manager? Because I know you were making a big point about, I want to know who I'm going to be dealing with. And so who was
Don't
that
give me a sales
person?
pitch now.
Yeah.
Well,
we never
and
seen
that was another suggestion from state officials that said, you want to talk to the person that you're going to be talking to every day. And that's why when I asked for those in-person presentations, it was to be able to look them in the eye, to be able to ask them the questions, to be able to hear their responses and know, or at least feel that they are the people that are going to be the ones that have the town of Fort Myers Beach best interest at mind. And I think it went well today. We got to where we need to be. Tidal Basin happened to be the one that got the bid today, who have been here since almost day one. I think it was 8 days or so after the storm. They're fully engrossed in what we're doing day to day. We've got a great communication link between us and them. We've seen them every single day, the same two people. Eliza's been there every single day. So it should be just nothing should change.
So the CEO that spoke today, he's not actually in town, right? Because I'm trying to line somebody up from Tidal Basin to come on the show. Who do you recommend?
Well, I would reach out to him. He was the owner, Daniel. I'm sorry, I don't remember his last name.
I got his info.
But he seemed very knowledgeable. He was speaking quite a bit. He offered his services in any way. So I would reach out to him first. He's the owner of the company. He'd be the guy I'd start with.
So Dan, if anyone has any questions for Dan, you can type them in there. We got 14 minutes left, and he always likes to take your questions. Dan, I noticed today it seemed like there's some people are starting to get a little restless about Times Square. Both Orlandini and Terry Prasad came to the public comment section about it today, and also Veach brought it up. I mean, is it moving a little? There's even one property owner there that hasn't removed his debris. I know Terry even had some equipment in there over the weekend and was helping somebody out to clear a lot. So what's your opinion on how that's moving along to get it cleaned up?
Well, it's not as fast as I'd like, but again, there's several business owners in there, plus the town has property in there, and then you got the county on either side. So you've got a lot of entities that you have to work with to be able to get to a resolution. We're getting closer. As soon as we can get, Times Square cleared out, then we can start moving forward, whatever we know that's going to look like. We don't know yet. And that's going back to where we were talking about that urban planner and working with the county. Whether you want to admit it or not, you've got to work with the business owners, you got to work with the town, and you got to work with the county to be able to come up with what is going to be in the best interest for the town of Fort Myers Beach and its residents and its visitors, as well as Lee County, as well as the owners of the businesses.
Got it. Whoop. So you froze up there.
And
There we
did I
go.
freeze up?
You're good now.
Yeah, you're fine.
So we'll have to have a point where we sit down and everybody puts their vision out there, and we kind of go from there.
So there isn't a committee together yet. Is that the next step?
Not that I'm aware of. There's no committee for sure that I know of, but the next step is going to be, we got to get it clean first. Let's get the debris out. Then we got to start talking about things like the CCCL line and all the stuff that was,
It seemed like that's
how can you build back? I haven't had a great amount of time to speak with staff about that, but I can tell you it's if you ask one staff member, it's one answer, and you ask another staff member, it's environmental versus codes. It's
sure.
We got to figure that part of it out.
Will the town put some pressure on that last property owner to get that debris out of there, or?
Well, that property owner actually came into the town hall. Danielle sat down with him because he wasn't very computer savvy. Got him signed up on iandebriscleanup.com. Did help him through all of that. So he's in the process of doing that. Now it's just a matter of getting them out there to make sure that they have. We talked to ACDC, who's the company that would go in and actually clear that out of there. They haven't gotten all the sign-offs yet that they need, but the process has been started. It's been started for quite a while.
There's only a couple pieces of property there that still need to be cleaned, right? The one on the end, and then one maybe right next to it. But they're big
it's
messes.
the same owner, I believe, that owns all of
Okay.
that.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
I think it's the Dairy Queen and all that around that corner. It's pretty much the only debris that's left.
Right.
But he has come in. Anita Saracita actually put us in contact with him so that we could get that process started a couple weeks ago.
Do you think that needs to be its own planning committee, or the whole island needs to have a planning committee and that just needs to be one part of it?
Well, again, I mean, do we want to concentrate on just what Times Square was before, or do we want to concentrate on what we could potentially do with collaboration with the county, with the pier, with each of the parks that they own on each side, and what the town owns in the center, along with all the business owners?
Yeah.
Personally, I think working together with all of those entities makes sense because we have the opportunity now that we didn't have on September 27th.
Right.
To be able to make Times Square really unique and really cool and really enticing to people. I mean, it was the #1 visited place in Lee County before the storm. Imagine what it could be after. So I think that's something that we at least have to look at. Sometimes you have to take a step back, I think.
So it sounds like you're saying it should be kind of a separate thing from the entire island plan. Like that needs to be its own like committee with the county, with the business owners, and with you guys. And instead of trying to, I mean, what kind of priority could it really be if you're trying to rebuild and replan the entire island?
Well, you
I mean,
still have to.
Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about.
Well, it's still a different district. I mean, you got to look at the zoning districts, and right now your zoning district allows you to do X. This one allows you to do Y. Depending on how you're zoned, depends on what you can do. So we have to first look at how high are we going to have to build. Can you have stuff on the ground level, which you can, but all your cooking stuff has to be upstairs. What's going to be in this area? What's going to be the best fit for everybody involved? As I said, it's not just the town, it's not just the county, it's the business owners. What's going to make the most sense there?
Gotcha. Do you know when they're going to get power to Times Square? I know it looks like Bella Mozzarella. I mean, every weekend I go down there, it looks like you could flip on the pizza oven.
Mm.
Well, we have a lot of conversations with FPL right now. It's kind of focused on getting the lighting fixed. I know every time I drive over the bridge, it's extremely dark. None of the lights coming down Old San Carlos or coming down San Carlos Boulevard and over the bridge are, it's very dark. So I want to find out what needs to happen to get those lights on. There's got to be a reason why they're not on, and I'm sure it's probably a very good reason. There's still stuff on San Carlos Island that hasn't been powered up or lit up. So there's got to be a reason somewhere that I just don't know the answer to yet, but we need to work with FPL to get lights back on the island because it is pretty dark on the north end.
Yeah. So if you take the finances out for 1 second, because that's the #1 issue. We know you're trying to get the you and Keith and Chris are trying to get the town whole again with the money from the different resources. What are if you were to kind of shotgun your top priorities, what would they be in order?
Well, you're talking about as far as getting the finances, or
no? Take that off the table. What's after that? What are your priorities as the mayor?
Well, to get people back in their houses, that's the #1 thing. We've got businesses open up every week. Getting people back in their homes and out of trailers. As someone that's living in one, I can tell you, anyway, it's not the most comfortable thing in the world. Having to go up to Beach Baptist and use the showers is not a comfortable thing. But
TMI. What's after that one? Give us a couple more.
Yeah.
What are a couple other of your priorities?
I think the lighting on Estero Boulevard and all of the island is very important. We need to get that taken care of. We've got, turtle season coming up. Now that all the houses are gone on, most of the houses are gone on Estero Boulevard. Now you're dealing with side street issues. So that's a very important thing if we're just leaving finances out of it. I think getting our parks and recreation stuff open is very important. But again, most important.
Rose up again.
It's getting our economy started again. Oh, did I cut out again? I saw my head spinning.
You're good.
Right.
I just don't know.
So you're again. I know.
I guess we have a lot of stuff to do yet.
Yeah.
we still need to get all the debris removed. As I've said 1,000 times, you drive up and down this island every day and you notice something new, and it's not because you're not paying attention. It's because the house that was in the way is now gone, and now you see the next damaged house behind it. So we still have a tremendous amount of debris cleanup that has to happen, both on the island as well as in the waterways. The waterway debris cleanup is very, very, very important. I mean, that's what everybody came down here for, was the water. So to get out in the water and enjoy it, that's get the mangroves cleaned up. I can tell you that's an important thing with Director Guthrie and his staff. And as he said, though, it does that takes a lot longer.
Did we not ask that one? Go ahead.
I think so I don't want to be redundant, but when we were talking about the height of things, and I think your answer was base flood elevation is going to determine how, how high it has to start. But I think what we're getting is a lot of questions that are asking, how high can they go? Like, what's the height that they can go? Because I think the thing is they don't want to see these big, huge buildings going up. So.
Well, I don't remember the exact height currently. I want to say it's 30 something, or I don't know the number off the top of my head, but there's been conversations about, do we do base flood elevation and then that's where the height starts? I mean, I think people have to realize
but how high can they go? I think that's the thing. People want to see limits. What's the limit on how many stories a building could go up?
Well, you could go, if I remember correctly, we just changed it. We had called it the sticks and carrot thing. Depending on if you wanted to come in, you could go up another story. I don't remember what the exact height was. I want to say 50 feet or right around 50 feet, something like that.
So a building, a residence or a commercial building could go up 50 feet.
Something right around there. Don't quote me on that exact number.
No, I'm just saying, and it's the same for both. Okay.
So what has been discussed is, do you go base flood elevation and that's where the height starts?
And that's where the 50 feet would start there, or you're saying?
Oh, I see.
Oh,
yeah. So you're not starting right now. It calculates it from the ground essentially.
Right.
And that's your height. But now,
holy pro. So then that would be 50. Say it's 50,
and
then another 17. No, I know. Yeah.
But that would be fair. That would be the fair thing to the resident that owns the property, right? I mean, if he was able to build to a certain height before,
and had
I think it's been said many, many times, but I think it needs to keep getting reiterated, is we're going to have higher buildings. There's absolutely no way around it. That we don't get to dictate that anymore. That if you're building, you have to go to base flood elevation. There's just no way around it. Where we can dictate after that is, what do you see? How much higher above that can you go?
That's what I think people want to know and they're worried about. And that's what they want from the town.
And is there an appetite in the town and through council to want to change what that height is, or how that height is calculated? Not necessarily increasing that height or decreasing that height, but do you now take that from the base, not from base flood elevation versus the ground? I think that's because a lot of the base flood elevations have gone up. And I think you've probably heard from people who were in permitting before and they had their height and they're concerned. And these are all things that we have to work through. There's so many different unique situations. We aren't going to be able to cover them all right away, but you have to cover the biggest basis that you can to get the most people moving forward.
I understand there's a lot of people that don't want to see high buildings because it blocks the view, or because then it becomes, what it wasn't before. But if you look at it from a homeowner standpoint, they bought that piece of property, and because of a storm, FEMA says you got to be here, and now the town's going to regulate them and say you can't go up. You're in a position now to take away, a lot of the home value.
Well, our position is not unique after a storm. And I try to rely heavily on people who have been through the storm, who've built back since they've had the storm, and the challenges that they had to go through. And their challenges are exactly what we're hearing now. You're going to have people who are fighting to stay under that 50-50 rule to keep the house because they love the house, or they can't afford to build up, or whatever reason they want to keep that house. And their neighbor may want to just tear their house down and build it up, and then build it to the current regulations, which could now block their view. So one thing spirals into another. And I think that's the dilemma that we're going to deal with. And it's not going to be easy, and not everybody's going to win, but you have to do what is in the best interest of the entire island. And I think that the LPA and the council will do that based on information that we get from the community, because we don't have the answers. Again, we can listen to the community as to what they feel is the best, and we can listen to people that have been through it before and what they found worked and didn't work and wish they would have did. You know, you learn from your mistakes is a thing that people say all the time. And, you know, talking to someone that has been through it before will tell us the mistakes they made, and hopefully we can not make those same mistakes.
And let's say if you were to have to make a vote right now based on a homeowner's property, they have to build up, just for round numbers, they have to build up 10 feet. They were on the ground, they now have to build up 10 feet. Would you vote that they could keep the height that they had before the storm, or would you vote that they can't keep that height? What's your vote?
Well, it would depend on the size of their lot. Personally, if you're asking me my honest opinion, personally, I would have to look at the lot size, because if I have a 50-foot lot, should their rules, because they have a smaller lot, be the exact same as someone who now buys 3 50-foot lots? So should the person that has a 50-foot lot be able to do the same thing as someone that buys 3 lots? So,
I mean, why?
In terms of height, though, in terms of height, we're talking about height.
Well, so think about it. If I have a 50-foot lot, and we'll just use round numbers, 50-foot lot, as you said, 10 foot, and I can build 50 feet on top of it.
Yeah.
Now I have one structure that has the setback on each side, whatever that setback is, but it goes up, we'll just say 30 feet. We won't say 50 feet. So now you have a total height of 40 feet.
Yep.
Now the house next to it, and we'll just assume that these are all on the beach. They're all on the Gulf side. The property next to it is now 3 lots, which is 150 feet, who has the same setback. Say it's whatever. We'll just say it's a foot on each side just for easy numbers. But they also get to go up. So you have so much more massing that goes up. And I think that is when the code was changed before. It was done to prevent that massing. It was done to prevent that Bonita Beach Road, where every house was a big concrete square. So if you just try to answer your question specifically, and to try to give just an answer as to what would that height be?
Do you limit the amount of lots people can buy, or do you limit
that? I think what Dan is saying is you'd rather them be wider than higher if they have 3 lots.
Well, a view corridor is very important. I think it's been important since as long as I've been paying attention. People want to keep that view of the beach, especially now when you see it when there's no houses to look through.
Yeah.
So how can you protect that?
Well, they're going to look through the bottom now because it'll be open.
Well, the issue we had before is that they were open until they got their CO, and then they went and closed off the entire downstairs.
Well, I don't think that'll happen now, right?
But that's all part of the discussion, Kim. That's my point. Is how do you offer? Maybe you offer more height or more density. I shouldn't say density, more height to keep the basement open, or keep the. There's so many different ways that you can do it. But it's
I guess.
But don't they have to?
I guess what I don't understand is how can you be like you say to one person who's got 1 lot that you can go up, but you say to the person that's got 3 lots, no, you can't. I mean, how is that fair to the person who has 3 lots? I mean, they I don't see how you can't be consistent with how high you're allowing. I mean, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just spitballing here. It just doesn't seem consistent.
Well, if you've been paying attention to the way I vote, I'm all for consistency. But in certain things, so when we changed the setbacks, for instance, it was told to us that the 15%, if you have a 50-foot lot, it doesn't affect you at all. But
it did.
It did, yeah.
But it didn't. If you have a 50-foot lot, you still have 7.5-foot setbacks at 15%. It's simple math. Now, if I have 150 feet, that makes a big difference. But by changing to your point, I guess, Ed, we also allowed people to shift it. So you could have a setback bigger on one side. It didn't have to be equal on each side. It could be, you could shift your home. So if you wanted to have a pool over here, you wanted to pool equipment over there. So we tried to offer a benefit to the smaller setbacks, or the bigger setbacks, I guess I should say. So maybe there's a way to do that with the height. I don't have all the answers. I think it's going to take a question, but
sure.
But it has to be what does the town want the island to look like? I don't think you will ask anyone that wants to see big square concrete blocks
Correct.
next to each other. And by doing what you're talking about of being fair, and I don't like to use the word fair, it's about what does the island want to see? I mean, how big of a house do you need? If I've got a 100-foot wide house that I can go 3 stories high, I mean, that's a pretty big house, right?
Yeah.
3
Yeah.
stories.
I guess
It's.
I guess I look at it from, if I wouldn't want other residents, and this might sound stupid, but I wouldn't want other residents to be able to say, well, I don't want you to have a house that's too big when the guy next to me has a house that's big. It just, I would want to say, okay, here's the code, here's the zoning, and I need to follow that. But it just sounds like it's going to be a whole set of rules for different people based on the view corridor.
Well, so if you look at just talk about the way the code is now, going back to the 15%, you know what the rules are, you know what the code is before you buy the house.
Yeah.
If you can build your house within what the rules are, what the code is now, build your house. If you want
go as high as you can.
But now you got to build up. You got to start up 17 feet or whatever.
Well, people that
you had to do that anyway.
You would have had to do that anyway.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
If you're building on a bare lot, you would have had to do that anyway. So
that's right.
You're still building within the code that's currently there. And that's why I've said, I don't know how many times, that if you can build your dream home, if that's what you're building, or your vacation home, or whatever you're building, if you can build it within the current codes that are in place now, because you don't want to wait, there's nothing holding you back. You can do that.
Yeah.
If you want more, or you think the code's going to change to allow you more, or if you're afraid that the code may change to allow you less, then you want to build now. Or you want to wait, depending on what you want. Right now, it is totally a person's decision. If they want to move forward, there's nothing stopping anyone from moving forward, building anything they want right now. There's a set of codes in place right now. If you want to build, the codes are there for you to do it. Yeah. If you think they're going to change, you can wait. You can do whatever you want, but there are a set of codes in place that haven't changed since the storm that you can move forward with, should you choose to.
Do you think the town would ever consider not allowing people to buy lots next week? I don't even think you can do that. Sounds un-American. Like somebody said that they're considering that in Naples to limit combining lots. I don't even think can government do that?
I don't know. I'm not an attorney. I don't know if you could or you couldn't, but I mean, if someone's got the money and the means to buy, combine lots. The good news for us is we're never going to have enough money to ever be able to afford anything on Fort Myers Beach. So we'll never have to worry about these goofy rules you guys have.
We're talking.
It really comes down to, I would say the majority I hear from people is they want to keep that Fort Myers Beach, that cool, funky, eclectic vibe.
Sure.
They understand that the buildings are going to have to get bigger. They understand they're going to have to go taller. But that doesn't mean the culture can't stay the same. It doesn't mean that within that building changes. And I think that's the important part. We know that the way the island looks is going to change. There's just no way around it. But it's the people that are in those buildings. It's people that run those businesses, the people that frequent those businesses. That's what makes Fort Myers Beach, not the building. The history will still be there. We still have some small cottages that made it through the storm. We still have people that are building back under the 50% rule and getting back in the smaller homes. We'll still have some of that charm and some of that vibe. It doesn't mean that the new houses can't have that charm or vibe. It's the people that go in it. It's what do we want this to look like? What do we want it to be? To keep it fair in your words, Ed, do we want to say whether you have a 50-foot lot or 150-foot lot, you can build this big square box and go up and do exactly what you want to do? I don't know that's the pulse of the community, in my opinion, that I've heard.
I agree. All right, Dan, we got to let you go. We know you're busy, and we appreciate you coming on. And remember, Dan, it's Mondays at 6, just in case you want to put that in your Rolodex next week.
Well, you need it. You know what? I'm sorry, Ed. I appreciate it. I deserve it. But, you can call me at 5:45.
Oh, now I got to call you. I never had to call you before.
He's a big deal now.
I needed to set the reminder of my phone.
See you later. The Mayor, Dan Allers, everybody. All right.
I'm gonna go.
Oh,
some stuff to.
I gotta get to bed.
Oh,
yeah, well, who was that? Who called? Who was it? Who was it?
It was Lowe's.
Oh boy, do we have washing machine stories for you this weekend? It was quite an interesting experience. Yeah,
Boy,
you're gonna have to tune in just for that.
damn well better be here.
All right, everybody. If you're looking for a renovation loan, we want you to call Laura Sanchez, the Vice President of Mortgage Lending for Affinity. Let me make sure I get this right. Financing that can help purchase or refinance. We've been talking about houses, new homes, rebuilding. To help you overcome the 50% FEMA rule, owner-occupied second homes or investments. You can call them Laura Sanchez, the Vice President of Mortgage Lending for ATM Mortgage. No, that's guaranteed affinity. I apologize to Laura, but call her, damn it. Give you her number first. Her number is 239-895-0657. That's 239-895-0657. Now ATM Mortgage. And then we'll let you guys bust out of here until Friday night at 5 o'clock. If now is the time for you to purchase a home in Southwest Florida, ATM Mortgage can help. ATM offers low down financing options and loans that'll allow you to purchase a damaged property and fix it up the way you want to. You can reach Fort Myers resident Kim Henderson at 239-849-6999 or online at atmmortgage.net. And thank you to all the sponsors. Thank you to all the merchandise you bought last weekend. It was crazy, everything that you guys bought up. We ordered the tank tops. We ordered the new logo shirts, so we'll keep you posted on that. We appreciate you tuning in for Mondays with the Mayor. See you Friday, and the newsletter will be out tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. Bye-bye.